I'm Jeff Gallashaw, and we're back with another new episode of Unfinished Business. This week we are talking about unnecessary sequels. Excuse me, I'm a little buzzed because Edwin has made me a junkie for Fuzzy Navels. So I'm on my second or third at this point, so that means this will be a more lively discussion. And this week, as usual, we have our co-host, guest star, director extraordinaire, Andre Joseph with us. And how are you enjoying your drink, sir?
Oh, this is fantastic, Jeff. Thank you for having me here today and having this drink with you.
Yes, and thank you, Edwin Samuelson, wherever you are out in the cosmos, for being our bartender. We're here to talk about the unnecessary ones. I mean, I like Alien. I love Aliens. But really, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection weren't needed. Sounded like good ideas at the time, but as you can see from watching them, they are not good. So, Andre Joseph, tell me some films that you think didn't necessarily need to have a sequel.
Alright. Well, I gotta get this one out of the way because it just really pains me in the heart to even think about it, and that is A Good Day to Die Hard, aka Die Hard 5.
Didn't see it, thank God. And
well, all I'll say, just to make it quick, Bruce Willis sleepwalking through a movie, collecting a paycheck, going to Russia, trying to bring his son into the storyline to fight some forgettable bad guys, and a piss-poor director like John Moore and a piss-poor screenwriter like Skip Woods, and you get yourself the worst Die Hard movie in history.
Don't diss Skip Woods. I liked Thursday. I even liked that piece of shit Swordfish because I thought it was, entertaining for what it was. Even though I just called it a piece of shit. But, I was entertained for 2 hours. I mean, it isn't his fault John Travolta was in it.
I'm disappointed in you, Bruce Willis, and I hope you find your energy once again.
But see, it's interesting you say that because when you said those first 2 points, like sleepwalking through a film, that sounds like the usual Bruce Willis MO sometimes. Which, G.I. Joe too. But I'm going to mention another one. The Matrix movies. I was fine with the original. I don't know what the fuck 2 and 3 were. Because I'm like, the second one had some good action sequences, but really no story. And then the third one kind of came around, but by that time, I had lost all interest.
I thought at the time when The Matrix came out that this was the best sci-fi franchise since Star Wars and Terminator. So, like everybody else in America and around the world, expectations were extremely high for these sequels, and we had all sorts of theories of where the Wachowski brothers were going to go. But instead what we got was a mildly entertaining second film, which unfortunately went into the route to bring in vampires and werewolves and architects speaking language that kids in America cannot understand, and a third movie that's set mostly in the real world that is just nothing more than a Ridley Scott ripoff.
Well, see, when you mentioned vampires and werewolves, that would have definitely made that film, the way you make it sound, more interesting.
COCOON The Return.
Whoa, you went way back. I just first of all, you said indeed. And then you went way back, what was that, 1989, 1990?
1988.
Oh, jeez, even my years are off. I remember COCOON The Return. All I remember is, spoiler alert, one of the old people dies this time. That's the only thing I remember. And the little boy who was in the first one was now a teenager. And of course, it was the return of Goots, Steve Guttenberg.
Steve Guttenberg.
And you know what? I know Ron Howard didn't return. I kind of liked the sequel. Even Brian Dennehy came back for a cameo.
Well, the sequel had its touching moments. It was great to see the original cast back together again. Unfortunately, it was a sequel that just wasn't needed. You had a great ending with the very first film that Ron Howard did, and in some ways you could say it was almost an ambiguous ending. Yes, it goes in the E.T. route where they go on the alien ship and they go off on this planet where they'll never die. But when they show that scene at the end with the funeral and everybody thinks that the old people died in the water except for Wilford Brimley's grandson, that could have almost been was the alien plot for real or was it just a delusion of the old people? And I think having sort of like an open ending like that probably would have just been open for interpretation in years down the road.
You have thought way too much into this movie than it is worth, because I'm like, it's about old people and aliens, and you're like, have all these themes for this film.
Well, it's a very nice film, that's all I have to say.
I am going to go out on a limb and say this film, which I think most of us will agree. X-Men 3 is... I mean, if you need to make another X-Men movie, at least bring in somebody competent. You brought in Brett Ratner, and in a weird way, I felt like X-Men 2 ended perfectly, and it ended the series. But now you got Pyro, you still have Magneto and Xavier fighting over their terminology. Spoiler alert, you get rid of Xavier, Patrick Stewart, who's like one of the main reasons to watch the film. And I'm just like, and you know, all of a sudden all the like villains are kind of now sexy and rebellious with Dania Ramirez. I don't even know what her character's power was. Or the Asian guy with the spikes. And then that I think the bisexual model who was in a bunch of his other films playing a role. I still don't know what these people actually did or how they helped the plot line.
You have to remember, Bryan Singer was set to return for X-Men 3.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Warner Brothers came to him with Superman Returns, and that was just a better offer for him.
And look how that panned out.
And yes, studio politics came into play. They wanted this movie out by a certain release date. They already had a script in place. They had to go with a guy who had some established credits, and they went to Brett Ratner. Now, Ratner might be at fault for some things in the film, and I will say that, but he was in a very screwed up situation that he had no control over, so therefore Fox killed the franchise, and then eventually saved it with X-Men First Class.
And one of the things that shocked me earlier is one of the movies I would have thought was an unnecessary sequel, you actually thought was better than the original. And ladies and gentlemen, this man thinks Sister Act 2 is better than Sister Act. Now, mind you, this came up I wasn't even going to mention this film. It only came up because I thought Sister Act 1 was the movie I had seen the most times in theaters. And then you come out with this nonchalant comment like, it was better, well, Sister Act 2 is better. So I want you to explain, how is Sister Act 2 better than Sister Act 1?
Well, for one, I've watched it more than Sister Act 1, but, you know, most
Jennifer Love Hewitt, was that it?
No, not Jennifer Love Hewitt, but it had a better plot, I think. Seriously, I mean, Whoopi Goldberg,
Are you serious?
the singer turned nun, going to the school that
Oh, you mean the thing from the plot from part 1?
Yeah, but she's going and she's helping these kids and making the musical choir, and it's cool. You got Lauryn Hill before anybody knew who she was with the Fugees.
Okay, so you had great musical talent, but at least the first film is, you know, a fish out of water tale. It's a little far-fetched, but it's a little more understandable. This one, okay, she was at the middle of a controversy from the first film, yet nobody in this film recognizes her. None of the students, I guess because students are just dumb and don't watch the news or anything, yet they know everything about technology. But then you have a bunch of, like, all these icons of drama in it for no reason embarrassing themselves. Bernard Hughes, James Coburn.
Who's got the best line of the whole movie? Teach them to play soccer, and Bernard Hughes goes, "We don't have the balls for that."
And for that the sequel needed to be made. You couldn't just put that in a random screenplay of just anything. So it only if Sister Act 2 is made can that line be used. In fact, I reminded of a fact from some phantom out there that the name of Sister Act 2 is Breaking the Habit. Yet she doesn't break the habit because she wears the habit throughout the whole film.
I don't fucking know. You
defend it like you know, though.
I was in like freaking 3rd grade when that movie came out.
Another film I'm sure, I don't even know if you've seen. This isn't an unnecessary sequel, but somebody on the show previously feels this is an unnecessary sequel. I think it's cool as shit. Grease fucking 2.
Well, doing any movie sequel without John Travolta in it is just an insult.
Explain Staying Alive, another unnecessary sequel, directed by Mr. Sylvester Stallone.
Yes, well, again, another terrible movie, but surprisingly enough, a guilty pleasure for me.
You really like Damnation Alley?
I'm not gonna lie, some of the Frank Stallone music is actually pretty kicking. I'm not.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Sister Act, and now you say Frank Stallone music is awesome.
Yeah, Far From Over. I can listen to that in the gym.
I I didn't even know the name of the song. And you actually know. Do you? I take it you have this on your iPod.
Yes, I do. That's a little secret for how I get to my filmmaking technique. I go to the gym before I go to set, and I listen to Far From Over by Frank Stallone.
Who are you? What's next? Do you like Ooey Ball movies too?
Oh no, I wouldn't.
Because I'm like Frank Stallone music. At least I know what to get you for your birthday. You're like the type of person who like will defend really bad. I mean, I know I defended Grease too, but so far that's only a piece of shit I'll admit to defending. I mean, what's next? You gonna defend the Saw sequels or the Paranormal Activity movies? Yes, I have to always bring it back to horror because I'm that guy. But it's Scream 3. Because I felt at the end of Scream 2, I knew all I needed to know. And they made a third one because, now we're going to find out who the grand plan of it is. And I can understand in the sequel, spoiler, killing off Randy because at least it makes that film noteworthy, even though it's not that great. There's some obvious choices, like unnecessary, like Hangover 2, which was just a remake of Hangover 1, only in Thailand, or also I have down here Caddyshack 2.
Well, one that definitely stands out in my mind is another 48 Hours. The sequel to 48 Hours of Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte.
I'm surprised you didn't like it, considering your list so far.
Well, yeah, think about it. He had just come off of Harlem Nights, which he directed, and that was a big disaster. And Beverly Hills Cop 3 was not ready yet, so he decides... Well, yeah, that's another one. But he decides, let's go back to my very first hit and make a sequel to that. But since they were in such a rush to do it, they basically took the original movie, switched up a couple of scenes, kept some of the same dialogue, and rehashed the redneck bar scene, and there you go. Sequel to 48 Hours.
Okay, I can see it. I mean, it didn't bother me as much as it bothered you, apparently. But I can see your point.
Blues Brothers 2000. A movie which has some great music, but should have never been made. John Belushi is rolling in his grave as we speak.
Well, that was just so uneven. The plot lines made no sense. John Goodman wasn't a good replacement because 1 minute he's supposed to be forceful, then he's like this persnickety, like, Elwood, I don't know. And the sad part was that when I went to go see it, there was a guy dressed up as a Blues Brother watching the movie.
Oh my god.
I don't know if he took his costume off before the movie ended, though.
Arthur 2 on the rocks.
A movie so bad, even I haven't watched it. Are there any movies out there that you wish had a sequel?
Probably, if I had to say all the time.
And not like Blade Runner 2, something a little less obvious.
No, not Blade Runner 2. I think the only one that I would have liked to see is the second Top Gun.
Really?
I think they could have gone in a couple of different directions with Tom Cruise as Maverick, but I'm on a couple of missions. I know, it probably would have been the same without Anthony Edwards as Goose, because he died in the first one, spoiler alert.
You might want to warn people.
But nonetheless, it was a big franchise for Paramount. They had video games, and they could have done some interesting stuff with it. And sadly, Tony Scott is no longer with us, so it could never happen again.
I just don't see a whole big franchise away. Jet fighters, and romance. Oh, we have to find a new girlfriend for Tom Cruise.
They could have done a lot better than Iron Eagle.
Okay, Iron Eagle, that's a low blow. That's a ripoff of Top Gun. But, okay, see my things that I want to see sequels to are films that were probably low budget in the first place, but were fun, that I'd like to see the continuing adventures of. Stuff like what was promised kind of with when they made the Lost Boys sequels, which was supposed to focus on the Frog Brothers, and there's a great graphic novel of their adventures, but of course that wasn't made into a movie. Instead, we have Corey Feldman with a deep voice hunting a retread of the first film. But I'd like to see a sequel to Vamp, for instance, with Grace Jones. I would have liked to see him, Chris Makepeace and his vampire buddy, the continuing adventures of, spoiler if you haven't seen it. Or I'm going to say one that will shock, because I know it's bad, but since you said since you said Sister Act 2, I'm going to say a shocking movie. I wish there had been a sequel better than Sister Act 2. Mother freaking Action Jackson 2. I would pay to see that film. Terry Crews as the son of Action Jackson with a cameo by Carl Weathers.
No, I would have just done a straight sequel with Carl Weathers because he's the man.
He's like 60 years old.
He still looks in great shape.
So you want to see like almost like a Rocky Balboa movie, a geriatric action hero kicking ass. Who's gonna be the villain? Morgan Freeman?
I would rather see an Action Jackson sequel than an Apollo Creed spinoff.
Okay, touche. Well, I think we've squeezed as much out of this subject as we can. There are probably plenty that we forgot to mention. You guys out there know the films that didn't need sequels. So I guess that concludes our business for this week. But as you all know, there's plenty of unfinished business. But I have to say this. Have you seen Fruitvale Station, no matter what Tony Barnes says? If not, why not? Because it's awesome. Go see it. Don't make me come out there and get you. And that concludes this week's Unfinished Business. Until next time, I bid you adieu.
Jeff, what is the deal with using that DVD container upside down and putting your cup in it?
Because Edwin doesn't appear to have coasters, and I don't want to mess up his nice tabletop or desktop, so that is why I put my drink nicely in this DVD top divider, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, but this is the problem.
Yes?
Andre isn't using a coaster.
That's because Andre, despite the way he dresses, isn't as classy as the Jeff. You know, he knows how to, woo the ladies. He knows, he's got the cool car. But you know what? Age before beauty and experience.
As if you're gonna toast the camera.
Look at that tears dripping.
Okay, cool.
Okay.